Okay, here we go.
I need ribs to ease my day. I need to find time to cook them right. My papa said, can't hurry ribs. No, you just have to wait. He said ribs.
And now, at your service, here to help you cook and eat like royalty is the barbecue whisperer and hedonism evangelist from AmazingRibs.com, the planet's biggest and baddest barbecue and grilling website, Meathead.
Boiled slabs must I stand before I find the crunch to let me live again. Right now, the only thing.
Well, welcome everybody. That is the voice of my niece, Natalie Longo. What a voice. Well, welcome and happy 1 week till Thanksgiving. I thought we would kick things off tonight with a little turkey talk, and then as always I'll entertain any question on any subject, so long as it is not marital related. Thanksgiving a week away. Let me get a little poetic and philosophical at the outset. I think Thanksgiving is the coolest holiday of them all, for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's a harvest festival, which makes it the one and only holiday on this calendar that is food related. And I happen to have an interest in food. I mean, you know, we all sit around the table at Christmas Eve and Christmas and Easter and 4th of July, we eat ribs, and Easter we eat hams or lamb. But Thanksgiving is designed to be a food festival, a food holiday. It's the harvest. And I just think it's so cool. I read a statistic the other day that 90% of us will be eating turkey on Thanksgiving. Now think about that. This is a country that is so fractured, so divided, racially, politically, ethnically, gender, that we are constantly bickering and fighting with each other over everything. But on Thanksgiving, across the nation, we're all sharing the same meal. We're all holding hands and dining together over the same meal. Okay, some of you guys are going to do lasagna or a beef roast or maybe duck or something. But 90% of us are having turkey. And with it, most of us are having stuffing or dressing or sweet potatoes and cranberry sauce. And there's a menu that goes with this, and it's a tradition. And okay, so some of you are going to do, instead of stuffing, you're going to do a corn mash or something. But still, I just think it's the most marvelous concept. And I used to rail, you know, there were people who were complaining about the war against Christmas. And I just never saw a war against Christmas, but I saw a war against Thanksgiving, because all the stores were opening on Thanksgiving, and people were rushing through their meals to run out and go shopping. And then there was the Black Friday. And it's so cool. Of course, it wasn't me that did it, but I did get on my high horse, and I wrote an editorial that ran in a bunch of newspapers. You know, and the stores now are not opening so much on that. Some of them are. Most of them are waiting. Okay, we'll open Friday. Not thank. Yeah, let us eat our meal in peace. Let us spend the day together as a family. Let's enjoy each other's company. Watch the football game. Oh, watch the Bears and the Lions. Oh, what a pity. I'm a Bears fan. But you know, it's just so nice to have this day of family and food. So it's my favorite holiday throughout there. Yeah, I do ribs on 4th of July and ham and lamb on Easter and big old roast. We'll talk about them, the big old roast for Christmas, but Thanksgiving, turkey, it's special. And by the way, I like turkey enough that I cook it all year round. Summer, winter, fall. I know most of us just do it once a year. But if you get it right, and that's the trick, and that's what we'll talk about tonight, is we'll talk about how to get it right. Now, this is going to shock you, but I like to cook it on the outdoors. I usually start it on the smoker, although you can do it on a grill. And if you've got a Weber kettle, and that's all you've got, you can still do an awesome turkey on a Weber kettle. The key is on a grill is to set things up in 2 zones. And we've talked about this before, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But in case you haven't heard me do my spiel about 2 zones, here's the concept. You want to divide your grill in half almost all the time, no matter what you're cooking, turkey or... You want one side where there is no direct heat, where it is, I like to say, the shady area. And the other side is the direct heat where the flame or the charcoals or the energy is. Think of it this way. You go out on the backyard on a hot summer day and the sun is pounding down on the back of your neck and you're going to get a sunburn. Well, the sunburn is ultraviolet, but that heat is infrared radiation. That is infrared, and that's the same energy that comes from your grill. From the flame of a gas grill, from the glowing charcoal of a charcoal grill, from the embers of a log burning. That's infrared energy, and it's really potent energy. And then when you divide your grill in half, you want concentrated infrared on one side, but you don't want any direct infrared energy on the other side. You want no charcoal, no flame, no logs on the other side. That side is warm just by convection airflow, and you can gently roast things on that side. And that's where you want to cook your turkey, away from the direct infrared energy. It's too potent there. You want to move your turkey onto the indirect side. So if you've got a gas grill, you get one side really hot and the other side not. You got a charcoal grill, charcoal on one side, nothing on the other side. You can throw some wood onto the flame and get smoke rolling, and it will go over on the indirect side. That's the shady side. So you're standing out on a hot summer day and the sun's beating down on the back of your neck and you're getting infrared and ultraviolet, and then you step into the shade. Well, it's still a 90-degree day out there, but now you're in the shade. You're getting indirect energy. And the same thing here. You want to think of your grill as the sunny side and the shady side. And once you do that, you've got a big handle on temperature control, and and cooking is all about temperature control. That's what cooking is all about. So you're going to start your turkey on the indirect side. Now, if you've got a smoker, chances are it is entirely indirect. That's the way smokers are designed, so that there is no direct flame under where you're cooking. It's all indirect energy, and there are a billion designs for smokers. And if you're thinking about buying a smoker, just go to our site. We have a guide. We have a guy on our team who does nothing but test grills and smokers full-time for a living. Go check out the guide. We have a video on how to shop for a grill, how to shop for a smoker. And if you got questions, just leave your questions on the website. I or somebody on our team will help you out. So, I like a little bit of smoke on the turkey. I think smoke and turkey, well, you go to the deli counter at the grocery store and they always got smoked turkey breast and stuff. Turkey and smoke go together like peanut butter and jelly. And the key here is you don't want too much. If you use too much, it can really overpower the bird. Because when you get down to it, turkey is kind of a mild taste, isn't it? So I like a little bit of smoke, not too much. So I use a smoker. I've got a variety of smoker. Of course, as you would imagine, I have one of everything. For Thanksgiving, for turkey, I tend to use my pellet smoker. I have a Mac, M-A-K, not a Macintosh. It's just Mac 2-star. But there's Traeger's. There's a whole bunch of different pellet smokers out there. And the neat thing about the pellet smokers is you can set it and forget it and walk away. They're digitally controlled. The temperature control is solid as a rock. You don't have to worry about it's dropping down too low. I got to add more charcoal. It's zooming up too high. I got to turn back on the oxygen. You just set it and forget it and walk away. And it's a very delicate smoke too. It's not a real strong smoke. So I'm fond of using my pellet smoker for turkey because I don't want too much smoke. And you want to cook it at around 325. Now, normally, most things I cook indirect at around 225. And one of the things we do on AmazingRibs.com and in my books is I try to instruct you guys to learn how to master temperature control and get to 225. That's your standard smoking temp. But for poultry, you've got skin. And the skin needs a little more heat to get crispy. You want crispy skin on your turkey and your chicken and your duck. Nobody wants flabby skin. So you want it a little hotter in order to render the fat in the turkey skins. So we go up to 325 instead of 225. And you don't need to go much higher. Remember, the hotter the temperature, the more pressure you put on the muscle fibers. It compresses the muscle fibers and squeezes out the moisture. So you're going to get dry meat. And the problem with turkey is that all poultry, turkey and chicken, you have to cook it to a minimum of 160 degrees to make it safe. And unfortunately, the reason for that is the way turkeys are grown and raised, there's a high likelihood of salmonella and a couple of other bacteria in there. And so you just want to make sure you kill them. And the way to kill them is 160 degrees interior temperature, and that will knock them out pretty good. But the problem is 160 is well past well done. And if you go any higher, on the white meat at least, any higher on the white meat, you're going to have cardboard. So you just absolutely, positively have to have a digital thermometer. You cannot trust the pop-up thermometer. Usually they're set for 170, 180, and that's cardboard. You need a digital thermometer, and you can get a nice one for $30. We've got a guy on our website who tests thermometers. He's an electrical engineer, and we don't sell any, but we link to places where you can buy them. Go to AmazingRibs.com, click on the product review section, check out the thermometers, pick one of our platinum or gold medal winners, find something inexpensive. They will give you a precision reading in 5 seconds. And that's what you need. A handheld thermometer, you can stab it, and it's not going to leak. It's not going to spurt juices in your eye and dry it out. A digital thermometer is absolutely essential. It's the only thing that's as important as a sharp knife. Every cook has to have a good one. So, okay, 160. The other thing is I prefer an herb seasoning on it. You know, a lot of your standard barbecue rubs. Let me tell you what's happened since I saw you last month. Look at what we got here. We have 3 rubs and sauces. Here's our pork rub, and you can see it's kind of reddish. Got a lot of paprika and stuff in there. It's based on the recipe. Many of you have had our Meathead's Memphis dust. It's based on that, but it's different. It's got a few new ingredients, and several of the ingredients are smoked. And you can order them now on AmazingRibs.com/flavor. And I saw somebody commented earlier that the shipping is killer. We have now set up a relationship with a warehouse where if you order, I think it's a $45 or $50 minimum order, shipping's free. If you just buy one bottle, yeah, shipping is killer. But you can get all 4. We've got a pork rub, and this is what I use, my poultry rub. And it's based on our Simon & Garfunkel, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. But we got a few other goodies in here. None of these are identical to the recipes on the website. That would be foolish, wouldn't it? And this is like my favorite, the red meat. I'll tell you, I used to do nothing but salt and pepper on a steak and disdained anyone who would put anything else on it. I will not cook a steak without this anymore. It is just effing awesome. And we also introduced barbecue sauce. Now, I wouldn't use barbecue sauce on a turkey. Some people might, maybe for the leftovers. But I want it, the turkey's delicate. I want to keep it delicate. So I'm going for the poultry rub, which is mostly herbs. And if you don't want to buy it, there is a recipe on AmazingRibs.com called Simon & Garfunkel Rub, and you can make it yourself and save some money, and it's pretty darn good. So I like the herbs on my turkey. Now, a couple of other things. Don't stuff the bird. I know that's traditional. I know that's the way Norman Rockwell painted it. But when you stuff the bird, you make a bowling ball. And remember, we said 160 is your target temperature. Well, if you stick a thermometer in and go all the way to the center of the stuffing, you have to go to the center of the stuffing because juices, which carry bacteria, are penetrating into the stuffing. You have to cook the center of the stuffing, the center of the bowling ball, to 160. Well, if the center is 160, the exterior, the outside, is going to be 180 to 190, and it's going to be dry. It's going to be overcooked. So don't stuff it. If you don't stuff it, warm air can go into the cavity and cook from the inside. So you got heat coming from the inside and the outside. It'll cook a lot faster, and you won't dry it out. But better still, spatchcock it. Spatchcock is a slightly naughty sounding word for butterflying it. What you do is you get a really good sturdy kitchen shears and you cut the backbone out, and then you open her up and flatten it. And when you flatten it, okay, I know that this is going to give Granny a heart attack because it's not the Norman Rockwell bird, but it's still a whole turkey. When you flatten it, you've reduced the thickness. And the thickness is crucial. It's how thick things are that determines how long it takes to cook. The longer things have to cook, the more likelihood it's going to dry out. So by flattening it out, you're going to make it cook faster. And this is cool. The interior, the cavity, which is always tan, is now going to brown. When you flatten it out and you open it up, the interior side, which is tan, is now going to brown, and brown is beautiful. That's the chemical reaction called the Maillard reaction, which makes food turn brown, which makes the exterior of the bird brown. Brown is more flavor. It's a chemical reaction that alters the compounds, primarily the proteins and amino acids, and creates more flavor. So if you can spatchcock it, you're going to get a brown interior, brown exterior. It's going to cook faster. It's going to be moister. And if Granny has to see a whole bird, when you bring it in, you can kind of scooch it back together and make it look like a whole bird. And by the way, when you spatchcock it, it's a lot easier to carve. Now, that's another thing, carving. Don't slice the breast meat off the bird. If you do, you're cutting with the grain. You want to cut down along that, what they call the keel bone. That's the breastbone of the bird, but it's sticking up. Remember, the breasts are up. You want to cut along the breastbone down to the rib cage, and you cut along the breastbone down to the rib cage and out, and then you lift the whole breast lobe out. You get both of them, and then you cut across the grain, and it'll be more tender. Okay, and then everybody gets a little bit of skin. If you cut it at an angle while it's on the bird, then all the skin comes off with the first piece. So take that breast lobe out and cut it across the grain. What else? By the way, AmazingRibs.com/flavor. AmazingRibs.com/flavor. That's the web page that has all of these rubs and sauce on there. But there's a new video that we just posted today by a guy named Justin Postal, and it's really good. He shows how he cooks a spatchcock turkey on a kettle. It's a slow and sear kettle, not a Weber kettle, but it's similar. And he cooks a gorgeous turkey on a kettle. I mean, this is an inexpensive cooker with smoke, and uses our poultry rub. Really a beautiful video, and I've got that video on AmazingRibs.com/flavor. Go watch that. Also, there's another video on our YouTube channel that shows me cooking turkey too. So, what else do I need to talk about on turkey? The stuffing, or no longer stuffing now. It's dressing. When you don't stuff the bird, it's called dressing. So if you don't stuff the bird, what are you going to do with the dressing? Well, a lot of people put it in a pan, and that's cool. A shallow pan, you get a nice crust on the surface. What I love to do, and the recipe for this is on AmazingRibs.com, is I mix a little egg in with the dressing, and they go into a muffin pan. So everybody gets a muffin, exactly the same size, exactly the same weight. Think of a muffin, like a blueberry, only it's stuffing muffin, a muffin. And what is the best part of the muffin? The top, muffin tops. Well, that's because it's crispy. And everybody gets a nice crispy surface muffin. So everybody gets some of the crispy stuff. And it's really cool. And it's always a conversation stopper. People just love the stuffing muffins. The recipe's on our website. It's a lot of fun. And it gives everybody a nice crispy. What else do we need to talk about? Oh, what else I like to do is I get a baking pan. A 9x13 pan is okay, but if you can get a bigger one, I've got a big one. Put it underneath the bird. When on a grill, you've got the grill grates. I get it underneath the grill grate. If you can't do that, I'll put it on top of the grates, and then I'll lay a grate on the top of the pan and put the bird on top of that grate. And that way, it drips into the pan. And in that pan, I put a bottle of wine, some carrots, some celery. Hey, celery leaves, celery tops, celery leaves are full of flavor. Don't throw those out. Just rip those off, throw them in the pan. And some apple, maybe a cup of apple juice. I have some herbs and spices, a little bit of the rub there, some onion, and basically, and even some chicken stock if you want. And I get about a quart and a half of liquid underneath that bird, and then the drippings go in there, and they're smoky. And what you are making now is you're making a turkey stock. And when you trim the bird, you take the backbone, you cut the bird out, the backbone, that goes in that pan, and the neck goes in that pan, and the gizzard goes, and all the skin from around both cavities, all that loose skin, everything except the liver. You don't put the liver in there; it'll funk up the flavor. I just saute the liver and give it to the dogs, or I keep all these chicken and turkey livers in the fridge sometimes, and in the freezer rather. And when I get enough of them, I'll make a pate out of them. But that all stuff goes into the pan underneath the bird, and it makes the most amazing stock. This stock, and is more than enough for a gravy. You can thicken it with flour if you want to make a classic thick gravy, but I don't thicken it. I leave it thin like that. It's a stock. It's like a soup almost. And it will penetrate. So if you pour a little over the meat, it'll soak into the meat. If you thicken it with flour, you're adding a starch, and that's a huge molecule, and it can't penetrate the meat. It just sits on top of the meat. So you still have drier meat. And then there's almost always a half a quart or a quart left over. And the day after Thanksgiving, I just warm it up in the microwave and drink it in a coffee mug. It's just like wonderful soup, the stock. It's just fantastic. I mean, it's bone stock. And what I do is I pull it out from under the bird about a half hour or so before the bird's done. And when the temperature hits 145, 150, pull it out, strain it, throw out all the dead celery and lettuce, and taste it. And if it needs to be thickened or reduced, put it in a pan and just reduce it on top of the stove. Fantastic stuff. Oh, and then I pour it into a thermos bottle, a coffee thermos, so it'll stay hot. Because I go over the river and through the woods to my brother-in-law's house, and he's not too far away. But to do that, I want that stock to stay hot in the thermos. Now, when the bird's done, I'll put it in a beer cooler and close the lid, and that'll keep it warm till I get to the party. So I think I've covered most of my core concepts of turkey there. Let me see what kind of questions we've got, and then we'll take questions on anything. So let me scroll to the top. A lot of folks here tonight. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Let's see if we got any questions. Somebody says, thought that rack of ribs over my shoulder was a menorah. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you get when you make it into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. That's a trophy they gave me as all the barbecue. There's only 25 living members of the Barbecue Hall of Fame. I'm proud to say that I was inaugurated this year, and it is. It's a big old brand. It weighs a ton. Oh. Can you hear that? That's a big old brass rack of ribs. Okay, Larry Gonzalez, you're the guy that was complaining about the shipping. Go to AmazingRibs.com flavor, and it'll take you to the company that warehouses and ships them now. And if you order all 4, I'm pretty sure the shipping is free. You got to order, I think it's $45-50 minimum to get the free shipping. But yeah, if you just order one of these, it's like, but this is a big bottle, by the way. It's about the size of a beer can. This is not, a small spice jar. So that's going to last you a while. And I'm very proud of the sauce. I'm getting, people who've bought it are giving me rave reviews. Gene Apicella, good to see you again, Gene. My daughter can't find a turkey breast small enough to fit in the slow cooker. All available birds are humongous. Yeah, that's one of the things. They've been breeding them larger and larger. And I got to tell you, if you have a huge crowd, it's better to cook 2 small birds than a big bird. Again, thickness determines the cooking time. 2 small birds will cook faster. They'll be moister. Plus, the big monster tom turkeys are going to be older birds, and they're going to be tougher. So if you can get small ones. A bummer about her not being able to find a smaller breast. Maybe she just buys a large breast and cuts it in half? I don't know. Nathan Trista. Yeah, it's, I call this poultry, but the Simon and Garfunkel recipe, if you want to make it yourself, similar to this, is for all manner of. I'm really good on chicken and turkey. Yeah, Dick Dark agrees with me. Thanksgiving's the best. Mark Ennis has been smoking turkey for 30 years. By the way, we just published a ebook. I don't know if you're aware, but the past year I've been doing little ebooks. I've been taking all that I've written about ribs and putting them into an ebook. Everything I've written about chicken and put it in an ebook. Everything I've written about Sous-vide Q and put it in an ebook. And turkey. I just finished the one on turkey a couple of weeks ago. And they're all available on Amazon. They're ebooks for $3.99. If starting to sound like a salesman now, there's a QR code on here. If you buy these and scan that QR code, you get those $3.99 ebooks for free. But there is a $3.99 turkey ebook, and one of the things it has in there is fried turkey, deep fried. I've been perfecting my deep fried turkey. I still prefer it smoked. The beauty of deep frying is it cooks really fast, it's really moist, and it's really crispy. But you really can't season it with a rub or something like this because it burns it pretty well, and a lot of it washes off. It's still really good. I mean, juicy and crispy. That's the advantage, and fast. That's the advantage. But you have to be careful. Man, just go to YouTube and Google or search YouTube for fried turkey disasters. Oh my God. People setting their garage on fire. It's just, frightening. Vincent, just watched the video I just mentioned. I hope you liked it. I think it's pretty good. Travis Vogelsong says, "You've never had my parents' turkey. You need sauce." Yeah, okay. When are the rubs hitting the stores? Ask. It takes time. They just came out last month, and they got to pass the taste tests from Lowe's and Home Depot, and then they got to decide where they're going to put it on the shelf. And if we go on the shelf, maybe they got to knock somebody else off. They'll start showing up on stores probably this spring, we hope. But right now, you got to buy them from AmazingRibs.com/flavor, and but hopefully they'll be in stores soon. Leslie Porter, what temperature should a 14-pound turkey on a Traeger? I'm not sure I get this question. The turkey should be 160 degrees in the breast, 170 to 175 in the thighs, and 325 is your cooking temp, whether it's on a Traeger or an indoor oven or a gas grill or a charcoal grill. 325 is what I target. Yeah, now, okay, somebody mentions butterballs. Once upon a time, I believe butterballs were injected with butter, hence the name. You can do that. And this video that I mentioned, he does that. He injects them with butter. It's a little tricky. You got to melt the butter, and if the meat is cold, the butter tends to harden quickly. What I do is I will warm the meat first. It'll go on the smoker for like a half hour until the meat starts to get warm. Then I inject it while it's on the while it's cooking. But yeah, you can inject those breasts with butter, and it really helps. What wood chips do you use for smoking turkey? Yeah, Ross, I've talked about this before. I'm not going to go into in depth here, but it just doesn't matter. All right, that said, hickory and mesquite tend to be very strong. But are we talking about pignut hickory or shagbark hickory? Are we talking hickory from Texas or from New York? Are we talking about hickory with bark or without bark? Are we talking about hickory that's air dried or kiln dried? And when you buy that bag of hickory, do you know what's in the bag really is hickory, or do they just stick any old damn wood in there? You know what? Just find one good source for wood and stick with it. I use mostly apple wood on everything. It's just my standard basic wood. The smell of the different woods, I can smell the differences, but I really can't taste the differences. So I don't obsess over wood. But yes, mesquite and hickory tend to be stronger. I go for the fruit woods when I can. And I'd use it on everything. One wood. Stick with one wood all year round, all meats. That's me. Go over slicing the turkey breast. It's kind of hard to demonstrate it here without a breast. But I was mentioning earlier, you start with the breastbone. I mean the breastbone. It's called the keel bone. It's the breast. It's the big part sticking up. And you slice right down, and then your knife follows the rib cage and out. And so now you've got the whole lobe, and then you cut it across the grain. And I've got pictures of this. Go to AmazingRibs.com and look up how to slice a turkey, and you'll see pictures of it. I don't think, Larry, that butterball turkeys are now buttered any longer. Oh, now this is another thing. Salting or brining. We got on this kick for a few years where we had to brine our turkeys. And so we were getting beer coolers, we were filling them with 2 gallons of apple juice, and then we were dumping a couple of cups of salt in there, and then a whole bottle of garlic powder and a whole bottle of black pepper, and we put the bird in there, and then we get a bag of ice and throw it in there, and then after 6 or 8 hours we'd have to get another bag of ice and get up in the middle of the night and put another bag of ice in there. Terrible waste of time and money, because apple juice cannot penetrate the meat. The molecules are too large, and I've talked about this and I write about it, and I can't dwell on it because I know a number of you have been here before and you get tired of hearing me say the same thing over and over. Salt goes deep into meat. It's just 2 little atoms. They go deep into meat. But garlic, pepper, sugar, the molecules are too large. They'll just get into the surface, the cracks and crevices. They cannot go deep. When you're just go get a turkey breast and put every spice on the cabinet shelf on it, and then cook it. And then when you slice into it, take the taste out of the center, and you're not going to taste any of it. Only salt gets in. So what we much prefer doing now is what we call dry brining. You get your turkey and you put it on in a pan and you salt it. About a half a teaspoon of Morton's kosher salt per pound of meat. If you're using regular table salt, it's a quarter tablespoon per pound of meat, and sprinkle it all over the meat, and it will go deep into the meat. and it will help the meat hold on to moisture, and it will amplify flavor. And it's not too much salt. I don't care what your doctor says about your diet and maintaining your. It's a very small amount of salt when you get down to it. Okay. Now, but I must say, now almost all turkeys that you buy have been pre-salted. They inject them with about 10% of a saline solution. 3 reasons. One, the injection, it's a saline solution, adds water, adds moisture. 2, the salt amplifies flavor and it helps hold on to moisture. 3, water's cheap and they just raised the price. You're paying per pound, so they just increased the weight of the bird by 10% and it cost them nothing. Ooh, Chad says he's done smoked pecan pie. I'm a pecan pie fan. It's my favorite. By the way, if you're pie fans, the New York Times, oh gosh, I'm just drawing a blank on her name. Oh, she's one of my favorite cooks. She just did all 3 pies, and she's really smart. She really doped out all the little tricks and techniques. She did apple pie, pecan pie, and pumpkin pie, and they're really good-looking recipes. So go check out the New York Times. They do charge, but I think they give you like half a dozen free pages or something. Do I ever double down on cooking techniques to smoke and fry? Not turkey, but I've done that with chicken wings. Smoked and then fry the chicken wings, and it really works nice. It's really good. And by the way, I deep fry on my grill. Get a big old Dutch oven and put about an inch of or 2 of oil in it, and turn the heat under it and leave the other side off. And there's no more risk this way. If the oil spills and starts the grill on fire, a lot less damage than if the oil spills indoors and sets your house on fire. There's no danger or risk of doing this. And if it spatters, who cares? You're outdoors. If it smokes, who cares? It doesn't set off smoke alarms. I do all my deep frying in a Dutch oven on the grill. And okay. Ronnie Ellington. What if you cook a turkey breast to 165 and while deboning, some of the joints are still red looking? This is really interesting. I've written about this on AmazingRibs.com. Here's what happens. The breeders have crossbred these birds, turkey and chicken, so that they grow really big, really fast. And the result is that the bones, and inside the bones is where the marrow is, and marrow is where blood is made. The bones do not have enough time. Like a chicken. A chicken will go from egg to the grocery store shelf in 3 months or less. The bones do not have a chance to calcify, to get enough calcium around the marrow. So when you carve it, even though it's cooked to a safe temperature, you can find meat that has been stained by the marrow that's still red. The determinant is the temperature. If it says 160 to 165, it's safe. I don't care if the color is pink or red, or the bones are pink or red. The temperature is what kills the bacteria. Now, I know this is going to freak some of your diners out. Going to say, oh my God, the turkey's not done. If you can convince them that you temperature checked it and it's safe, it is safe. But that's just a byproduct. Also, there's another factor involved, and I've written about this also on AmazingRibs.com, and that's the pH of the meat, the acidity of the meat. Sometimes the meat will be pink, and it's a byproduct of sometimes it's the stress that the bird is under that will raise the pH. You cannot tell by the color of the meat. The only way you can tell if meat is safe is with a digital thermometer. Now, I know that your audience may have a rough time with. I married a PhD microbiologist. She gets all this. She understands it. If I put chicken on the table that's pink, she's putting it in the microwave. And I can stomp my feet and say, I have $100 Thermapen that says it's perfectly good, and it is safe, and it's nobody. Oh my God, Rochelle Calhoun. Oh dear, what an old fine friend you are. Good to see you, Rochelle. Reach out to me, say hello, catch me up on what you're doing. Rochelle used to work with me when I was in the wine world. Ah, what memory you just brought back seeing your name. Okay, moving along. So you don't need to dry brine or butterball. It's a question of you got to look at the label, and I've got a picture of this on the website. Maybe I can pull it up in a minute. Read the label. If it says this bird has been enhanced, and you'll see salt on there, then you don't need to dry brine. You can do a little bit, but it's been salted, so you're good to go. All right, just a technical term here, Larry Gonzalez. After smoking, is it possible to braise in the oven a couple of minutes to crisp the skin? Braising is a cooking method where you put meat in liquid. So we're not going to braise it. Bake it or broil it, yes. After smoking, what I will often do is if I'm not happy with the skin, if the skin isn't like a drumhead and it's not crispy, I will often move it to my gas grill and just fire up that gas grill and roll it around on there with the lid up just to tighten up that skin a bit. So you can do that, or put it in the oven under the broiler. Yeah, you can do that, or just bake it at a high temp, just to tighten up that skin. Yeah, Gene Apicella, the temperature of the oil when you're grilling. I have a whole article on frying on the grill. And yes, oil temp is crucial no matter what you're frying, where you're frying, indoors or outdoors. 375 is a good rule of thumb. Some things like donuts, you want to go down around 350 or 325, but just most meats, 375 is what you're frying at. And you can you can use your digital thermometer to get to that temp. And the minute you put meat in that oil, temperature goes way down. So you want to watch that and try to keep it up around 375 when you're frying. Yeah, Rochelle, Meathead at AmazingRibs.com. And anybody who wants to reach out to me, I'm easy to reach. You can just post questions on the website. But I'm just Meathead at AmazingRibs.com. Easy to reach. Okay. Brining, what percent solution might be considered a brine? It runs between 3 and 6% generally, salt. Something around the salinity of the ocean. Generally 6%, and I have recipes on the site. If you have to wet brine, use my recipe. There's actually a really smart technique that our science advisor, Professor Blonder, taught me on how to get a good 6% brine without really complicated measurements, and it's really clever. So go to AmazingRibs.com and look up brining, and you should find that. All right, I think we have covered most of those questions, and we're only 45 minutes in. I usually go an hour to 90 minutes, so hit me with your questions, anything. It doesn't have to be turkey. You want to ask me about grills, you want to ask me about steaks. Okay, Jason Pettis found that using meat tenderizer only on the skin helps to break it down. Meat tenderizers have an enzyme in them, and they will alter the structure of the skin and any protein. And everybody thinks the skin is all fat. It's mostly fat, or it's a large percentage, but there's a lot of protein in the skin too. So meat tenderizers do affect the skin. Salting it affects the skin. But it's not really that hard to get a good tight, crispy skin at around 325, especially if you've dry brined. See, that's another thing about wet brining. If you think about dunking it in a wet brine, now you're saturating the skin with water. So it's going to be harder to get it crisp. Jason, you listening? Okay. Steve Navarre, haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Sous-vide burgers. Okay, Dick Dark, we're talking sous-vide now. Okay, you forgive me, Dirk, but Dick, I gotta do a little, because a lot of people still don't know what sous vide is, and it's a really interesting concept. So, let's say we're going to do a steak or a burger. We'll talk about steak first because it's a little simpler. Steak is at its best. It's most tender, most juicy, most flavorful in the 130 to 135 range. We know this. We can measure how tender it is. There's a device called the Warner Bratzler machine. It's like an artificial tooth, and it pushes down, and it sees how tender it is. And we know how much moisture, because we can squeeze it and see how much moisture, and so on and so on and so on. So, you want a perfect steak. You want it in the 130 to 135 range. And it's kind of rosy colored. It's not pink, and it's not red. And that's medium rare. 130 to 135 is medium rare. Okay, so you throw it in a grill. What temperature is the grill? Well, I mean, you got a lot, so you're cooking it, say, right over the charcoal. There's a lot of infrared energy now, and it's and you're flipping it, and you're getting it, and when you're done, what you're doing is you're trying to catch the train while it's moving, because you got a moving target. The meat's heating up, and you're trying to get it off at exactly the right temp. And when you get it off, there's energy still built up in the meat. It continues to cook. So it may be perfect 130 when you take it off, and when you get it to the table, it's 140. It's like trying to catch a train that's moving. You want to catch a train that has stopped. And what sous vide does is you take that steak and you put it in a zipper bag or a vacuum bag. You suck the air out. And you can do that just by sliding the bag into the water, and it pushes all the air out. And you zip it up, and then you put a little heating element. It's a sous vide machine. They sell for about $100. And you put this, it looks like an old-fashioned flashlight. And you put it in a pot full of water with the meat. And it heats the water up and circulates it. And so the meat, you can set the temp to 130. And the meat will go up to 130 and stop. It can't go to 131 because the water is 130. It can't go any hotter. It can't go any lower. The meat is now perfect medium rare, 130. You can't overcook it. It's going to be maximum tenderness and juiciness. And that's the cool thing about sous vide. And you can leave it there for hours. Now, you don't want to leave it there too long. It starts to break down. But you can leave it there. So you can get it in the sous vide bath 2 hours before company arrives. And if they arrive late, it doesn't matter. There's one problem. When you open the bag up, that meat is gray. It is butt ugly. And what do we love about meat? We love it brown on the surface. We love the dark color and flavor that comes from the Maillard reaction. It's when energy changes the proteins and amino acids and gives them new flavors. So what you do is when it comes out of the bag, you throw it in a hot cast iron pan or on the grill or in the smoker and then on the grill or then in a pan. But you've got it at 130 perfect temp. If you throw it on a really hot grill, you're going to get a good dark surface. In fact, there's a video on our site where I actually take it, and you know what a charcoal chimney is. It looks like a big coffee pan, and you put charcoal in there, and you light the charcoal in the chimney. It's the best way to start charcoal. But the top end of a charcoal chimney is almost 1,000 degrees. I put a little tiny grate on top of that charcoal chimney. I'll take the steak out of the sous vide bag and put it on top of that charcoal chimney at 1,000 degrees for 2 minutes, flip it over for 2 minutes, and you have got one awesome dark sear. And if you put it on there at 130, it comes off of there at 133, 135. It barely raises the temp, and you get this magnificent dark sear. So that's a really cool technique. for doing. Now you can do the same thing. Somebody asked about burgers. You can do the same thing with a hamburger. And now here is where it comes in cool, because 130 135 is medium rare, and that's juicy and tender. But with hamburger, the safety rule is 155. Why? All right, if you've got a steak and it's got contamination on the surface, and it often does, when they slaughter the animal and they butcher the animal, it can get contaminated on the surface. Well, if it's contaminated on the surface, the minute you throw it over a hot grill, boom, everything's dead. And the microbes can't get deep inside. They're too big. So the interior is safe. It's just the exterior that's contaminated. So boom, you've killed it, no problem. But if you take that steak with contamination on the surface and grind it up, now the contamination's on the inside. And if you cook it to medium rare, those bugs are still alive, and they're dangerous. They can kill. So a medium rare or rare burger is risky. Now, it's not high risk, but how do you feel? Do you feel lucky, punk? I mean, there are some really scary, sad stories about people who've gotten really sick or dead from eating rare burgers. But you want a tender, juicy burger. So, if you put it in a sous-vide bag and set the temp for 130 to 140, it's going to still be pink to rosy in the center. But this is cool. The temperature is what kills the bacteria, but it's also time and temperature. You can kill all the bacteria in a burger in 7 seconds at 155. So you cook your burger to 155, 7 seconds, safe. But it's also well done. And it's a little dry. But if you sous vide it at we'll say 130, 140, and you leave it in there for a couple of hours, it's still safe. It's the time plus the temperature that kills the bacteria. And there's charts for this, and I've got the charts on our site, and you can download charts. If you buy a sous vide machine, it comes with charts, and it'll tell you how long you have to cook a burger to pasteurize it and make it safe at a medium rare temp. But there's another technique. And the other technique is you get your steak, go out and buy a chuck steak, and it's about 20% fat. 20% fat's a good ratio. I like 20 to 30% fat. So you get a chuck steak and look at it. Get one that's about 20% fat, or maybe more. And you bring it home, and you get a pot of water boiling. And you take that steak and dunk it in the boiling water for about 30 seconds. Well, what happens? You've killed any bacteria on the surface. Pull it out, pat it dry, grind it yourself, and you have pasteurized, safe meat. Now you can cook it to 130, 135, and it's still pink in the center, and it's pasteurized. Cool, huh? It's a time temp issue, and I've discussed this in detail on AmazingRibs.com. And also, if you're watching these blue scroll across the bottom of the page, you'll see one that comes up on sous vide and with a link. And I think it's, I forget what the link is, but follow that link and buy the $3.99 ebook that talks all about this sous vide stuff. Okay. Rochelle's got a Kamado. Oh, good for you, Rochelle. You're going to spatchcock it. Apparently, approximately how fast will it get temp? Well, okay, it's going to depend on how thick that breast is. So if it's a big bird with a big, thick breast, 2 hours? Again, it depends on what the temperature, what temperature is your Kamado, how thick the breast is. The two of them go together. It's like, how long does it take to drive from Chicago to L.A.? Well, depends on how fast you're going. So, can't quite answer that until I know the temperature of the air, and I don't cook right over the coals. You've got a Kamado. Use the plate that goes underneath so that you're not cooking over direct heat. In the 2 hour range, depending on the thickness and the temperature. But a digital thermometer, you need that to tell you how long, when it's ready. Okay, Jason Hoffman, sous vide Q. With turkey being delicate, Which would you do first, sous vide or smoke? I'm debating doing one of our birds on a green egg and then using the jewel to finish. Go the other way. My book discusses this, the Sous-vide Q book, the ebook, $3.99. If you smoke first and then you put it in the sous vide bath, what happens? All the liquid, you see a lot of liquid comes out in that bag. It's going to wash the smoke off, and it's going to wash the rub off. So always sous vide first, then smoke later. The problem is that sous vide and poultry, you're now going to get really soggy skin. It's really hard to get the skin crispy. You're going to sous vide it, and you can sous vide a turkey or a chicken up to 150. If you do it long enough, it'll be safe at 150, and it's a whole nother experience. You don't want to go much lower than that. It's kind of slimy tasting. But I don't like to sous vide poultry because of the skin. I want my skin crispy. So I would just smoke it. But sous vide is really great for a lot of other things. Yeah, somebody's complaining about the price. I guess there, I don't know if there really is a shortage of turkey this year, or if they're running around saying, "Hey, supply chain, let's jack up the price of turkey and claim it's supply chain." I don't know if that's what's going on, but I'm hearing from around the country that turkey prices are way up this year. Yeah, Jason's saying not the whole bird, just the breast for sous vide Q. And I have a video of a turkey sous vide on the website. It's gorgeous, and it's on our amazing. And what I do with it is, there's a product called grill grates, and that's a trademark. It's a particular type of grill grate, and it has like a railroad track rail, and then a flat spot in between. Hard to describe. But wait, let me hold on. All right, I'm gonna maybe bore you with a video. Let's see. Stick with me. I'm gonna go find it. It's a short video. I'm gonna show you this. YouTube. Okay. I'm on my YouTube channel. I'm gonna look for sous vide. There it is. Okay. Let me get this centered. Stand by. That's a commercial. There we go. I'm Meathead from AmazingRibs.com.
And I'm Grant Crilly from ChefSteps.com, and we're here to talk about turkey.
Today, we're going to try
Can you guys hear this and see it? Somebody tell me.
Sous vide. And we're finishing it on the grill. This is the ultimate reverse sear. What is sous vide?
Sous vide is very low and slow cooking. Instead of dry heat, we're using water. And it could be any meat you want.
And they go in a bag to hold all the juices in.
Absolutely. And Jewel is Chef Steps sous vide tool. So we're going to dive into some serious turkey business.
Okay, thanks.
So we've got a whole bird.
You've got muscles that need to be cooked to low temp, muscles that need to be cooked to high temp. So almost always, it's better to break it down. And here we've got dark meat and white meat.
We're going to get a little bit of seasoning. I'm going to do a little salt and sugar. So it's going to become like this instant brine, instant cure as they cook. They're going to go in a baggie. They're going to cook for a long time.
How long?
For the absolute perfect textured leg, we're going to be cooking at 150 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 24 hours. Breast, you're going to cook at about 130 degrees, 12 to 24 hours. To start with the legs, so you just push it under, zip it up, and that's it. And then that evening, you can just turn the bath down to 130, put the breasts in, and you can leave the legs in still, and just let that go overnight. So I dropped these last night. Obviously, what we've got here is wet meat in a bag.
Now these are butt ugly.
But it is juicy, it's succulent,
And what we're going to try to do now, we're going to work on the exterior of the meat.
Yep.
You cook the inside low and slow, and the outside hot and fast. And it's going to get a smoked flavor in a hurry. Oh yeah. Woo! And in just a few minutes, you can see we've taken and given it some nice golden color. And would you look at how beautiful these are?
Dude, this is gonna be so juicy. Yeah. Look at this. Cooked sous vide right on the grill grate. That's like tender pork.
Oh, and the skin is good. You've got that nice grilled flavor.
You know, the thing I like about this, honestly, you can cook these in advance, and then when you decide to eat, 5 minutes on that, you're done. So make sure you get Meathead's book. You should get the book, you should get Jewel, and just start kicking ass in the backyard.
So, were you guys able to see that? I hope you were. This is a product called Grill Grates. I don't know if you were able to notice.
Well, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Channel.
Oh, here we go. We still got videos in the background. Stop it.
Do some turkey.
Okay, let me just, right, there we go. Okay. So, these grill grates, you can throw wood pellets or wood chips down into the valleys in between the rails. And they're really good for a variety of things. If you've got a gas grill, I strongly recommend them. I find them a little less necessary for charcoal, but they're really important for gas grills because they really prevent flare-ups, and they distribute the heat evenly, and there's always hot spots on gas grills. But what I do is, it wasn't really clear, is I threw wood chips, or pellets actually, in the valleys in between the rails, and they start smoking almost immediately. And those turkey breasts that you saw, they were just golden and gorgeous. Remember, they came out of the bag, they were just tan and blah. It was less than 10 minutes on the grill grates because they're about a ½ inch above the smoke. And it's just, instantly fantastic. It's a great technique. Technique for cleaning the grill grates, Lewis is asking. I just hit them with a wire brush. Not a problem. It's cast aluminum, aircraft aluminum. I see Jason Hoffman is commenting. He loves his grill grates. Yeah, they're really cool things. Okay, I'm missing some questions. I got to roll back here and catch some. Okay, Cat Steele is saying, I don't buy Costco steaks. They're blade tenderized. Yeah, that's an important point. Costco and several other places, they'll take steaks maybe that are a lower grade of tenderness, and they blade tenderize. It's a gizmo called a jacquard, and it's got like lots of little tiny needles or blades, and they stab the meat with it, which cuts the fibers and makes it more tender. But what it also does is, if there's any bacteria on the surface, it injects it into the interior. So if you don't cook it to a safe temperature, which would be 155, which is a well-done steak, which we don't want, you can run a risk, and I do not recommend buying blade tenderized meat. There is a risk, and I would be very careful. Now, the companies that do blade tenderizing, they're doing it more carefully. They're being very careful about contamination. They use UV lighting and a few other things. Still, I'd rather spend a little more and get a tender cut. Oh, Rochelle's got a 10-pound turkey. Oh, that's going to cook fast. That's a small bird. If it's not going to be very thick if you're spatchcocking. If you do 325 for a 10-pound bird, it might be done in as little as 90 minutes. Especially on a Kamado, if you're going indirect, and do throw some smoke on it. Should cook. That's a really small bird. In fact, we had somebody earlier complaining they couldn't get a small bird. Tell them where you are. You still in St. Louis? We shouldn't tell people where people live. I'm sorry. Okay, Michelle, skin, smoked spatchcock turkey, how to keep the skin crispy. I think I talked about it a little earlier, and that is 325. At 325, you should get a good crispy skin. And if it isn't crispy at the time you want to take it off, if you've got a gas grill or a charcoal grill, any kind of or bring it inside and put it under the broiler. 5 minutes under the broiler. 5 minutes face down over a gas grill. That'll crisp it up in a hurry. Oh, Adam is doing a rib roast instead of a turkey. Okay. Can you blow torch the skin? Yeah. Yeah, you got to be careful with those blowtorches because you get hot spots, cold spots, and you can burn. But yeah, you can get a Bunsen burner, and there's an attachment. Well, I'm trying to remember what it's called. Damn it, I just wrote about it the other night. There's an attachment. It looks like a trumpet, and it spreads the flame out. I can't remember. It's on the website. Chris is asking, where's the other hat I'm getting questions from? Chris, we're simulcasting both on Facebook and YouTube. And I think also on Twitter. I don't know how this stuff works. So I'm getting questions from both streams. So if you're wondering where I'm getting some of these questions, it's coming from the other side, the evil side. Yeah, Brian Wolf is noticing that I was using a PK grill in the video. Yeah, they're really nice. Yeah, I've never noticed, David's asking if I can paraphrase, if there's a correlation between quality and price. I've never noticed that. Most turkeys are pretty much raised the same. And in fact, the worst turkey I ever had, this is my own stupidity, I learned a lesson. There is actually a place near where I live where you can walk in and you can see live birds in cages and say, I want that one. And he'll pull it out. And I won't describe what happens next, but you go home with a freshly killed, drained, plucked bird. And I brought it home and cooked it the next day, and it was awful. And that's because they go through rigor mortis. Duh. And it was just tough as nails. And that's an issue with most meats. Steaks beef needs to have a few days to go through rigor mortis, and then the enzymes break it down and make it tender. That's a good question. I get that often. Fresh turkey or frozen turkey? And it's a reasonable question also for seafood. Okay, you get a fresh turkey, and this is a scenario that could very well be what you're getting. So there's a turkey, say you're living in near me here in Chicago, and the nearest turkey farm is in Wisconsin somewhere. So they're growing a bunch of turkeys, and here comes Thanksgiving, and they got to get a lot of dead turkeys out of there in a hurry. So they start slaughtering them, November 15th. And they're slaughter, and they're not going to freeze them. So they're keeping them cold, but they're not freezing them. Oh, and by the way, they can be kept as low as 26 degrees and still called fresh. Well, at 26 degrees, it's still hard as a bowling ball. This is a USDA travesty. But in any case, so let's just say they're not doing that, though. They're keeping them in a very cold place, 34 degrees. And then they load them onto trucks and ship them from Wisconsin down to Chicago area, and they go to a warehouse. And there they're split up and shipped to the grocery stores. And it arrives at my grocery store in the middle of the morning when all the deliveries are coming in. And so the loading dock is a little backed up, and it's a warm day. We had actually a day in the 60s yesterday. And it sits on the loading dock at 60 degrees for a few hours. And then it's brought indoors, and then they put it in the cooler, and you buy it a couple of days before Thanksgiving. So it is still unfrozen, theoretically fresh, but how fresh is it? Now the alternative is they slaughter the turkey and they put it in a deep freezer at a really cold temperature and freeze it quickly. Now, if you slowly freeze something, you get large ice crystals. And those large ice crystals will puncture the muscle fibers, and you'll get a lot of purge, they call it, or juice that comes out of the muscle fibers. But if you rapidly freeze things, like really cold, below zero, or around zero, you get little tiny ice crystals, and they don't cause damage to the muscle fibers. So when you thaw it, it's pretty darn close to fresh. And the same thing holds true for fish. I recently subscribed, not recently, about a year ago, I subscribed to a service called Sitka Salmon Shares. Free advertising for Sitka Salmon Shares. What an awesome service. These are independent line-caught salmon fishermen from Sitka, Alaska. They go out and line catch salmon, cod, several different varieties of fish, even some shellfish. And they fast freeze it and vacuum seal it. And they ship it all around the country. And my fish arrives here in Chicago. And it is just awful getting good fish in Chicago. And this stuff is phenomenal. It's just as good as I caught it yesterday. You buy a subscription, you get pretty much whatever they catch. If the cod is running, you're going to get a shipment of cod. You get salmon, but this fish is just pristine. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we have fish a couple of nights a week now in Chicago. I was raised in Florida, and the worst part of living in Chicago is that I couldn't get fresh fish. Not anymore. It's not fresh frozen. So how it's frozen is crucial. Okay, Searsol, thank you, Lewis Parks. That's the gadget Searsol that you attach to your Bunsen burner. So if you do soldering, like you do copper pipes for your plumbing, and you got a Bunsen burner, you get this little Searsol. It's like a trumpet, and it goes on the end of your Bunsen burner, and it spreads the flame out. Thank you, Lewis. You know, I'm getting old. Memory ain't what it used to be. Chris Cannon's asking about my opinions on resting meat after it's smoked. There is no proven science. I went to Texas A&M and I said, I will give you funding if you will get to the bottom of this. There is no science. There's a lot of opinion. There's no science that proves that resting meat does what most of the chefs say it does, that the meats somehow redistribute themselves. I don't get it. I mean, when you cook food, I don't see there's no interstate highways inside the meat where the meat says, "Whoa, it's hot out there. Run to the center." And then when you take it off, it's it's cool. Let's run to the outside. I don't understand the meat science there. We've done some tests, Professor Blonder and I, where we have noticed if you take meat hot off the fire and slice it versus letting it rest for 5 or 10 minutes, there will be maybe a tablespoon or 3 of more purge, more juice that comes out than if you let it rest 5 or 10 minutes. That's not a lot, first of all. And the other thing is by the time you take a steak off the grill, put it on the platter, bring it to the dining room, serve it to everybody, serve the green beans, serve the mashed potatoes, pour the wine, it's rested 5 or 10 minutes. And people don't slice it up into 100 little pieces. People cut off a little bit, put it in their mouth, get some green beans, get some mashed potatoes, drink some wine, cut off another little bit. It's resting right there on the plate. I think I want hot meat served. I want to see it sizzle, because sizzling gets my saliva going. And you know what? When it comes to the moisturous effect of eating meat, saliva is a big player in the game. Yeah, if your mouth is watering, the meat is going to taste juicier than if it's not. So bring me a sizzling steak, and I'm not going to worry about resting the meat. Now, you bring a turkey in, and it's a big, thick mass of meat, right? And you take it off at 160, and you bring it in, and you tent it with aluminum foil. What's happening under that foil? Steam. It's steaming. And that skin is getting soft. Not only that, but remember, there's energy from the warm oven, from the grill, from the smoker, from the oven, built up in that meat. And when you take it off, that meat is 160 degrees. The air temp in the room, 70 degrees. So the meat has energy, and that energy continues to work into the meat. It continues to travel down to the center. So in 10, 15, 20 minutes of sitting around at room temp, it's going to go from 160 to 170. It's going to go from juicy to cardboard. Get that meat in, slice it up, and serve it. And have a nice gravy. I talked about my gravy technique earlier. If you weren't here, go read my Big Mass article on turkey. The technique for the gravy, it's a thin gravy that will penetrate the meat, not a thick, pasty gravy, and that will make it moist and juicy. So I'm a big fan of serving the meat rapidly after it comes in. Now here's another thing I forgot to talk about when I started off tonight. I was talking about technique. Those roasting pans. You go out and you buy a Calphalon roasting pan with 5-inch high sides and a V-rack, and you put the bird into that V-rack, and you put some water down below, because when it drips you don't want it to burn, so you put water in there. So what's going to happen? You put this thing into a hot oven, and the hot air hits the sides of that meat and that pan, and bounces off. Now up above the pan is the turkey, but below the pan edge is half the turkey. Half the turkey is getting hot air in the oven or the smoker or the grill, and the other half the turkey is down inside the walls of that pan, and it's not getting hot air. In fact, it's sitting above water. So the oven may be 325 or 400, whatever you set it at, but the water cannot get above 212. Water cannot go higher than 212. So the bottom of that turkey is at 212. Now, if the oven's really hot, that water starts to steam. So what's that doing? That's steaming the bottom of your turkey. And you know you've seen this. You see, they lift the turkey out of that roasting pan, and the top is beautiful, amber colored, mahogany colored. It's gorgeous. And what's the bottom? Tan and wet and flabby. Get that V-rack and put it in your driveway and back over it with your car. Take that big pan and put a grate on top of it. Just take one of the grates out of your oven and sit it on top. Put the bird on top of that grate, on top of the pan, so that warm air can circulate all around the bird, under the bird, over the bird, on the sides, and you'll get nice golden crispy skin underneath. It'll cook evenly all around. Those V-rack bake roasting pans are death to turkeys. And some of the very best meat on the turkey is what they call the oyster. And it's a little blob, and I've got a picture of this on the website, and it's in that little ebook. It's a little blob. It's about the size of an oyster, and it's right where the thighs connect to the body, and it's really good. And if you're a good carver and you know how to find it, never finds its way to the dining table. That's chef's treat. John Fessenden, what's the name of the company? It's called Sitka, S-I-T-K-A, Sitka Salmon Shares. Google them. You'll see their pricing. They deliver it to my door in a insulated bag, and it's frozen solid, and it's just marvelous fish. Marvelous fish. And if you live on the coast, you don't need it, but here in the central part of the country, St. Louis, Rochelle, it's fantastic. Chris Cannon says, some of the discussion boards seem to have guys competing for how long they can let a brisket sit around before you get. All right, there's a difference between resting and holding. Now, it's really, I do talk about this. If you take a steak or a turkey out and let it rest, it's going to continue to raise in temperature. You're going to overcook it, and it's going to, but brisket, beef brisket, if you smoke it, you're not taking it to 130. You're taking it to 200, 205. It's well past well done. It doesn't get moisture so much from water as it gets from melting fat and collagen. So that stuff is held, and it deliberately is held so that it will continue to cook, and it does continue to tenderize. So holding a brisket is different than resting a steak. It's a very fine difference. The physics are different. The chemistry is different. And I have a whole article on that very same subject on AmazingRibs.com, resting meat versus holding meat. And I talk about that. That's a very different topic. Yeah, Paul Drouard. Nice French-sounding name. He does reverse sear, and that's a great technique of warming the meat on the indirect side slightly first, and then searing it at the end. And we'll talk about that some other time. It's really important technique. It's why you have to cook in 2 zones. You sear at the end, not the beginning, and it's absolutely essential. He likes to rest it a little before it goes into the sear phase, which makes some sense. Because you can overcook if you don't, and you can also do a reverse sear and take it off and just let it sit around for a little bit and then throw it on the hot side. All right, let me see if I can read this. David Barone is asking, any risk smoking a bird on a smoker at a low temperature? Can you go over cooking turkeys on smokers and at a minimum temperature? Any guidance? Not sure I'm following this, but the bird cannot get hotter than the air that surrounds it. So it depends on what temperature you're cooking at, but almost always you're cooking at much higher temperature than 160. So yeah, even if you're cooking at a relatively low temperature like 200, the bird could go up to 200 and then it's badly overcooked. But at 200, you're not going to get a crispy skin. So yeah, there is a risk of ruining a bird at even a low temperature. That's why sous vide is so cool. If you can keep your smoker at 160, then you can't overcook. Follow me? Jason Pettis is asking me a question. I'm not familiar with the question. Have I encountered the foil boat brisket wrap method? It's a fairly new Texas thing. Well, they do all kinds of weird stuff in Texas, don't they? They wrap the fat side up in foil, but leave the fat exposed to continue rendering and building a bark/crust. Okay. Bark is jerky. Technically, bark on a slab of ribs or pulled pork or a brisket, bark is when the surface of the meat dries out and gets a little crunchy, and it creates bark. Well, it dries out. Why? Because the air inside the oven that you're cooking in, and your smoker is an oven. So let's say you're smoking at 225 all the way up to 325, whatever. Moisture comes to the surface of the meat and evaporates. And that actually cools the meat and slows it down, and then we get into a whole thing called the stall. I'm not going to talk about that now. But moisture keeps evaporating from the meat while it's cooking. That's why the meat shrinks. You get drip loss, and you also get evaporation. And a brisket can shrink by as much as 20% or more. When the surface dries out, you get a crunchy surface called bark. If you have a layer of fat on top of it, that fat doesn't get crunchy. It will brown a little bit. It will get a little bit of a thin crust on it, but it's not the same as real bark. So you really can't. So if you're putting it in foil And I presume when you mean it's in the foil, it's still in the oven. It's not in the Cambro or the warm the cooler afterwards. The fat will continue to melt and baste the surface of the meat. But remember, meat is 75% water. Fat is oil. Oil and water don't mix. The cap on the surface of the meat, no matter what it is, whether it's the fat in a turkey skin or a brisket or the fat cap on a pork butt, it cannot, under any circumstances, on this planet, in this universe, at any time, penetrate the meat, because oil and water don't mix. It can melt and go around the surface, but it can't go into the meat. So I'm not sure what they're trying to accomplish by this and what the theory is, other than melt the fat. And you can melt the fat if you want. I much prefer to remove most of the fat. I leave about 1/4 inch of fat on my briskets, and that melts down to about 1/8 of an inch when it's done cooking. If you leave that 1/2 inch fat cap on there, what happens? You cut it up, you serve it, and what's the first thing your husband or wife does? They cut the fat off and throw it away, because they're not going to eat 1/2 inch of fat. So there goes all your rub. You put the rub on top of that fat cap, and it gets thrown out. Trim all that fat down to 1/4 inch. It'll shrink to about 1/8 inch, and when you put the rub on there, people will eat a thin layer of fat on top. So I don't get what they're up to there. Not sure. Okay, Jeremy Stone, back to a rib roast. Should you reverse sear a rib roast or any roast or hunk? Yes. Yes. I have an article on beef roasts and a video on beef roasts, and reverse sear is absolutely a brilliant way to do beef roasts. All right, we're going to talk about reverse sear just briefly. If you take a beef roast, say it's 4 inches in diameter, and you put it in an oven, and remember, a smoker or a grill is just an oven. Put it in an oven. The heat hits the outside, the energy pounds on the surface, and starts to cook the surface. And slowly the energy migrates to the center. 75% water. Water is a great insulator. So it takes a long time for the energy to penetrate to the center. So what you get on your roast is a beautiful dark crust, bark. You get a thin layer of brown underneath, a thin layer of tan, a thin layer of pink, and then finally in the center you get rosy and reddish. So you have a rainbow effect because that's the heat penetrating and cooking the different layers at different amounts, different times. If you take that roast and you put it on the indirect side at a low temp, it will gently warm so it's even temperature edge to edge. But you want that dark crust on the surface. So you're going to do the same thing as you do when you sous vide. You're going to warm it gently, and then say your target's 135, which is medium rare. When it hits about 120 or 125, you're going to move it from the indirect side, from the shadow side, to the sunny side, to the direct infrared energy side, right above the hot coals, right above the flame, right above the logs, and you're going to sear the exterior. Lift the lid so all the energy is pounding on one side. Then you rotate it a little, and you pound it a little more, and you rotate a little. Now you're going to darken the exterior, but by rotating it, you're doing a rotisserie. The energy that builds up in the surface is coming off into the atmosphere faster than it's going down into the meat. So you're not going to get the rainbow effect. It's going to be even color throughout with a good dark surface. And that's absolutely the way to do a rib roast. And I talk about this in detail on my site on AmazingRibs.com. And you can go a step further. For Christmas dinner, I go over the river and through the woods again to another house. And I will I buy a USDA Prime or Wagyu rib roast. And it's a month's pay. And it's this full 7-bone rib roast. It's maybe 18, 20 inches long, 5 inches across. I peel the bones off. I'm going to cook those later. That's a beef back ribs are fantastic smoked. I'll set those aside. Carve off almost all the fat, and I get this gorgeous tube, 4 to 5 inches thick. And I may cut it in half because it's too big to fit into the sous vide bath. Put it into a sous vide bag, vacuum seal it, sous vide it at 130. Actually 131. There's it's a long story, but 131 is the temp at which almost all bacteria are going to die. And it'll sit in there for 3-4 hours, so I've pasteurized it now. There's no chance anything's going to live through that. But it's sitting at 131. It's absolutely perfect medium rare temp. And then I just take the bucket that it's in, put a cover on it, throw it in the trunk of the car, keep the sous vide heater in there, take it over the river and through the woods. When I get there, I plug it back in. And it just stays at 131. And then about 30 minutes before dinner, I take it out of the bag, I run out back, throw it on the grill, sear it on all sides, bring it in, and it is effing awesome. And I've got video of this whole process. And I'll never do a rib roast again any other way if I can avoid it. It's just gorgeous. And everybody just goes unbelievable. How'd you do that? It's fantastic. You need to get past the danger zone in a certain time, says Chris Cannon. Yeah. Your sous vide baths generally are fine. That's really detailed, but go read my articles on sous vide, or better still, get that $3.99 ebook, and we'll get you there. Yeah, Cat Steele is saying he's going to get a chuck roast and do it like he would a brisket, poor man's brisket, and it's fantastic. Chuck roasts, smoke them up to 203, fantastic. There's a lot of fat in there that melts, and it's a lot of connective tissue that melts. It's unbelievably good, absolutely. Jennifer, you are late. 5 points off the final exam. Melanie Waite is asking for suggestions for a blanket or a cover for a large grill to help hold heat on. Go to AmazingRibs.com, and there's an article on cold weather cooking. Just type into the search box cold weather or words to that effect. You'll find it. And there's links to some really interesting options. Some companies actually make, but welding blankets work. There's some other products that you can buy that are used to wrap hot water heaters. And then there's actually a couple of products that are made just for grills. Well, I think we have, John Molesworth is asking, any news or updates on the meetup? Yeah, let me, stick with me a second. We have scheduled March 18th in Memphis, a meetup, a gathering of like-minded barbecue lovers at the marvelous Peabody Hotel for 3 days of eating and seminars and drinking. We'll do some drinking. And it should be a lot of fun. And go to AmazingRibs.com/Memphis and you'll read all about it. And the latest news is that we are still go. We are getting ready to send out final invoices for payment. We will have a COVID safety routine. People will be required to demonstrate with a card that they are either fully vaccinated or have had a negative test in the last 24 hours or so. And we may even have somebody there to do testing. We're not sure yet. but we're going ahead. We have had to postpone it twice, so done with the postponements. Okay. Let's see. Anything else I need to talk about? I think that's about it. We'll be back here. Let me just check the calendar and see when I'm coming back here. Usually it's the last Thursday of the month, but this month we had to change it because of Thanksgiving. When is the last Thursday of December? Is that going to be Christmas? No, the last Thursday of December is the 30th. So we'll be back here on the 30th of December, and I guess let's talk. Let's talk about New Year's Eve foods and snacks, and I don't know. I'll come up with something good to chat about. Whatever, you can bring whatever questions you want. I'll be back here on the 30th, and if you have further questions, you can always come to AmazingRibs.com, and there's a questions, a comment section at the bottom of every page. We pay our moderators. They're not volunteers. They're professionals. We'll get you good answers. And you might take the 30-day free trial in the Pitmaster Club. It's really a great place to hang out and learn. I know I see a number of folks here are members already, so thank you very much. We'll see you next month, and everybody have a great Thanksgiving. Do keep in mind what I was saying earlier, how cool it is that 90% of us are eating the same meal next Thursday all across America. No matter our race, gender, political affiliation, color, we're all sharing the same meal. It holds us together. It's hands across America. It's just something really special. I hope you appreciate that and enjoy it, and that you'll give thanks to all the people around you who've gotten you here. And I give thanks to you because you've gotten me here. And we'll see you next month. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
That's all for now, folks. Thanks for staying awake, and please visit AmazingRibs.com for the articles, recipes, and reviews mentioned in this chat with the Barbecue Whisperer and Hedonism Evangelist from AmazingRibs.com, the planet's biggest and baddest barbecue and grilling website, Meathead.
It's a game of time and time. You can hurry ribs. No, you just have to wait. Just trust in the low and slow, no matter how